Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Chris O'Reilly. I'm the President and CEO of BC Hydro. Thank you very much for coming here to our downtown Vancouver headquarters. I want to recognize we're all on the territory, the traditional and unceded territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh, and privileged to be here. It's great to have you with us today, either in person. We have some folks calling in remotely. Today marks the culmination of one of our most important initiatives, and that is the 2024 Call for Power. Joining us this morning are Premier David Eby, Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, Adrian Dix, Minister of Environment and Parks, Tamara Davidson, and Kwatuma Cole-Sayers, the Executive Director of Clean Energy BC. I would now like to invite our Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, Adrian Dix, to begin today's announcement.
Thank you. Hey, thank you very much, Chris. It's, of course, an honor to be here on the territory of the Musqueam, of the Squamish, of the Tsleil-Waututh First Nations, an honor to be here on their lands. Thank you, everyone, for joining us today for this important announcement about British Columbia's clean energy resources. As we take action to increase our generation of clean energy to power people's lives, businesses, and communities, and our province into the future. It's great to be here with our speakers who Chris has introduced. It's wonderful to be here with members of our caucus. In addition, Joan Phillip is here, Vancouver Strathcona. Got to get the new names right, Joan. Terry Young is here, and Minister Terry Young is here. It's wonderful to have them here with us for this significant announcement. Just 8 months ago, we launched BC Hydro's first call to power in 15 years with a request for proposals for approximately 3,000 gigawatt hours per year of electricity. This had followed extensive work done by the Premier, by former Minister Josie Osborne, and by BC Hydro and the whole team that Chris leads here in this building and everywhere in BC. 3,000 gigawatt hours would add an additional 5% to our energy supply. Well, what's happened? We received 21 proposals for 3 times more energy than we were looking for. Now these proposals have been evaluated by BC Hydro, and I'm here to share some good news. BC Hydro will award 30-year electricity purchase agreements to 9 successful wind projects in British Columbia. These projects will generate nearly 5,000 gigawatt hours of electricity per year, or enough to power 500,000 homes. Put another way, we are boosting our power supply by 8%. And if that sounds familiar, it's because it's the same amount Site C will contribute to the grid. And these projects represent between $5 to $6 billion in private capital spending throughout the province and create approximately 2,000 jobs annually during construction. And that's not all. BC Hydro, in this innovative call for power, targeted a minimum 25% First Nations equity ownership in these projects. I'm proud to say that 8 of the 9 projects will have 51% equity ownership held by First Nations. The other project is at 49%, and that represents $2.5 billion to $3 billion in ownership by First Nations in new renewable energy projects in our province. I'm going to leave the further details on these projects and the selection process and next steps for Chris to share with you in a little bit. But first, I want to talk about rates and affordability, because I know this is important, and it's something that weighs on the minds of a lot of people. BC's Hydro's residential customers continue to have the second lowest electricity bills in North America, and we are committed to ensuring that BC Hydro customers continue to do well, continue to benefit from that, whether they be industrial, whether they be commercial, whether they be our residential customers continue to do well. And that was reflected in this call for power. It was a competitive process to establish fair market prices for new energy. The proposals submitted by power producers included the price of energy for their projects, and that pricing and the impact on rates was a major consideration as BC Hydro evaluated these proposals. We can't share the prices BC Hydro will be paying for this new generation until the electricity purchase agreements are signed. That will be soon. But I can tell you the prices will be considerably lower than the price BC Hydro was paying for new energy procured in the last open call for power 15 years ago. In fact, when adjusted for today's dollars, the average price from the successful projects in this call is more than 40% lower than it was in the last call for power in 2010. So we were clear of the priority of our customers, the priority of the economy in BC in this process. The resounding response to the call for power and the quality and breadth of the projects is a testimony to the strength of renewable energy sector in our province and to First Nations leadership on clean energy. In short, we need more power. This gives us more power. We need urgent action on climate change. This is urgent action on climate change. We need to ensure that First Nations are involved in the economic development of the province and have an equity interest. It does just that. And there's another important piece. I want to thank, in particular, Minister Tamara Davidson and her team, Minister Randy Neal and her team, for our work on this. When Premier Eby named us to our position, he noted the urgency of action in these areas. Urgency to get more electricity, the urgency to drive the economy and jobs, the urgency for climate action in our province. And so it's important that we announce calls for power. It is important that we announce the winning proponents. It's really important that the projects are built and built quickly. And that getting them built, getting these projects constructed, in fact, as soon as possible. We need them urgently, as I've said, to provide clean, renewable power, lower emissions, advance First Nations reconciliation, create jobs and opportunities for people, support innovation, and attract clean energy investment. We are fundamentally committed to bringing urgency to the development and building of this projects, to shortening the distance between announcing projects and getting the turbines spinning. It is recognizing that clean energy projects built in partnership with First Nations are in fact environmental projects. They are all about reducing pollution, supporting climate action to reduce emissions, and protecting and preserving a healthy environment. They're being built in collaboration with First Nations who bring deep respect, knowledge, and understanding of the land to the project in which they've invested. We need to get these projects up and running as quickly as possible. So recognizing that urgency and the inherent environmental value of these projects, we intend to exempt these wind projects and all future wind projects in BC from environmental assessment, while at the same time, and very importantly, ensuring that First Nations interests and environmental mitigations are protected and maintained. This means that wind projects will be able to advance through development to construction and completion more quickly, years quickly, and start delivering clean power to the grid sooner. In closing, I want to congratulate the proponents and First Nations partners whose projects have been selected to advance. In a period of just months, you've put together complex and forward-looking project proposals and First Nations partnerships. And that's the kind of urgency I am committed to as Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions. I also want to acknowledge those project proponents and First Nations partners who were not successful this time around. Thank you for your time, work, and investment you put into your project proposals. That work is not lost and will provide a foundation for your participation in future calls for power. It's incredibly exciting to see that happen. BC is calling for renewable energy. BC is calling for economic development. And when other provinces, at a moment when other provinces are doing exactly the opposite, this is an important statement of our determination to proceed for our environment, for our economy, for First Nations reconciliation. Thank you very much for having us today, and thank you very much to everyone involved for all of their work, including all of the people at BC Hydro who have put their heart and their soul into this effort so far. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Minister Dix. We're really looking forward to working with you in your new role And this really is a monumental day for our province as we continue to plan for our future energy need. Now I'd like to invite our next speaker to the podium, Minister of Environment and Parks, Tamara Davidson.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Minister Dix, and good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge that we are meeting today on the ancestral territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh. I'm honored to be here today as the new Minister of Environment and Parks, where my top priority is ensuring BC's strong environmental protections go hand in hand with the economic growth of our province. Today's announcement is a big step forward in our work to remain as a global leader in the transition to clean, sustainable future for future generations of British Columbians. I'm proud to work together with my colleagues to advance faster solutions to clean, affordable energy, as well as secure the renewable electricity that we need to power our daily lives. Through BC Hydro's call to power, it's clear that there are enormous opportunities to generate clean electricity through renewable energy, and that we need to do more to get larger projects online faster and keep rates affordable for people. That's why I'm committed to working closely with Minister Dix in our intention to exempt wind power projects from the environmental assessment process, while our robust environmental permitting processes remain in place, and while we ensure that First Nations are full partners in our shared sustainable future. I also want to give thanks to those organizations that put forward their plans to keep us to move to a clean energy future. And a huge congratulations to the First Nations who were successful in this work. It's a clear example of the progress that we can make when we work together as partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Davidson. It's great to have you here with us today and to be part of this important announcement. As you've heard, this is an exciting day for BC Hydro. Through the call for power, we've achieved our objective to provide new, renewable and affordable electricity to power growing communities across British Columbia. But I'd like to take this opportunity to talk a little more about these new wind projects that will boost BC Hydro's clean energy supply and diversify our generation resources. The successful projects are geographically diverse, representing almost every region of our province. We have 4 in the southern interior, 4 in northern BC, and 1 on Vancouver Island. The energy profile of these projects is well suited to our needs, delivering more energy in the fall and winter months when demand for power is the highest. And these are larger projects, delivering between 316 to 714 gigawatt hours per year, or enough to power 500,000 homes in total. These projects represent 5 parent companies and 9 First Nations, a testament to our commitment to advancing economic reconciliation. And these new wind projects represent up to $3 billion of ownership by First Nations. As we look forward to future calls, it marks a historic step forward in our energy partnership with First Nations. These new wind projects will start to come online later in the decade, and all of them are expected to be operational by the fall of 2031. But we're not done here. We expect to conduct regular competitive calls for power about every 2 years based on demand. Besides these calls, BC Hydro is taking other significant actions that will power more than 1 million new homes in the coming years. These include the addition of Site C, investments in energy efficiency, renewing existing electricity purchase agreements, and exploring the use of utility-scale batteries. We are confident that we're taking the right steps to deliver the clean and affordable power that British Columbians rely on. I would now like to invite Kwatuma Cole-Sayers, the Executive Director of Clean Energy BC, to say a few words.
Thank you. This is a very exciting day, as an industry leader and as a BC First Nations. This is all music to my ears. It's very exciting, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Kwatuma Colseres, and I'm a member of the Hoopachesset First Nation, as well as the Executive Director of Clean Energy Association of British Columbia. I also want to acknowledge the shared territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. Thank you for allowing us to be here. At Clean Energy BC, we are dedicated to supporting BC's transition to a clean and competitive economy that works for all British Columbians. We collaborate closely with First Nations, the province of BC, BC Hydro, and industry to accelerate clean energy development, advance reconciliation, and enable the electrification of communities, industries, and transportation across BC. My work is guided by principles of Hisham and Isak, respect, which are working together respectfully, and a driven commitment to advancing opportunities for First Nations in clean energy. Those values shared deeply by my association. Today, we have come together to celebrate a major milestone in BC's reconciliation and climate action journeys with the announcement of the successful proponents of BC Hydro's call for power. It is my honor to participate in this announcement of new critical clean energy infrastructure that will benefit British Columbians for generations to come. The projects selected today will empower First Nations and drive sustainable economic growth. $3 billion in equity is huge. CEBC, Clean Energy BC, commends BC Hydro and the province for taking an historic step to mandating 25% minimum equity. And as we saw today, it's even higher than that. So well done. Clean Energy BC also recognizes the forthcoming First Nations equity financing framework that's going to enable First Nations participating in major projects critical industries in British Columbia. These projects will address the province's growing energy needs and deliver transformative benefits for First Nations and all British Columbians. Indigenous ownership goes beyond economic opportunity. It is a powerful expression of self-determination. These projects will provide access to jobs, training, and education, laying the foundation for economic and energy sovereignty and uplifting communities. Clean electricity generation is the cornerstone of BC's future, powering sustainable growth across industries, from transportation to manufacturing and mining. These projects will increase the supply of affordable, clean electricity for all British Columbians, while supporting families, businesses, and industries, while maintaining the province's competitive edge in the global energy market. On behalf of the Clean Energy Association of British Columbia, I extend my congratulations to the successful proponents of this call for power. This announcement is a testament to the progress we are making in climate action and reconciliation in this province. Together, we are building the critical infrastructure needed to power the future we desire. A future that is clean, competitive, and inclusive, benefiting all British Columbians for generations to come. Thank you. Gliko, gliko.
Well, thank you very much, Cole. We are very proud to be working alongside First Nations with these projects as we advance economic reconciliation in our province. Now I'd like to invite Premier David Eby to say a few words.
Thanks, Chris. It's great to be here with you today. For our government team, it's been a tough week, and we've got a tough weekend ahead. Premier Horgan's memorial, some people we really love struggling with serious health challenges, and to have an announcement like this today reminds us of why we do this work, of the mission that drives all of us, and certainly that drove Premier Horgan. And it's nice to have some really positive news. This is an incredible announcement. I want to thank everybody involved, the proponents, the nations, the folks at Hydro who helped put this together. This is it really brings it all together in a way that helps British Columbians see a future of prosperity for our province in what are doubtlessly challenging times for many British Columbians as well, for different reasons. The moment we're in, we're seeing major jurisdictions move away from clean energy investment. Alberta with new rules restricting wind energy, for example. South of the border, we'll see what decisions the new administration makes around clean energy. Now, we know here in British Columbia that presents a huge opportunity for us. Now, it's an opportunity on a couple of fronts. First of all, we need more electricity. We're growing fast here in BC. More people, more jobs, more companies needing more electricity. And that's just to respond to growth. We also want companies to switch away from polluting fuels that can add to climate change. We want them to switch to electricity, which adds even more to the demand. And we know that our neighbors to the south and to the east want to buy, and to the north, want to buy our electricity as well. And they buy it at a premium that helps keep rates low for British Columbians. So we put all of those things together, we need a lot more juice. And that's what this announcement is about today. Because we have a remarkable and a generational opportunity here in British Columbia. 98% of our grid is clean, zero emission generation technology. And today's announcement builds on that. It leverages the advantages that we have and adds new generating capacity. Now, the remarkable piece about this is that today's announcement can create thousands of jobs every year, can create economic opportunity in every corner of the province, can actually help take pressure off of rates through creating the possibility of hydro sales outside the borders of British Columbia, can help us meet our climate goals, can do all of these things while at the same time protecting ratepayers and ensuring that they are receiving rates for their electricity that are affordable for them and their families, for their businesses, so that they can grow and expand. That is the kind of advantage that we have here in BC, and that is the kind of advantage that this announcement represents. Specifically, $4 to $6 billion in private sector investment in our province in this major wind resource. And as you've seen through this call for power, there is far more demand to offer this kind of energy, to invest in our province in this way, than this first call for power has approved. So that means there is more space for us to do even more of this, even faster than we hoped. More investment in our province, more prosperity for British Columbians, and a cleaner environment for everybody. It is a massive win for British Columbians. And when you add into it the fact that this is going to bring prosperity to First Nations communities across the province as well, that every boat is going to be lifted, including in communities that have struggled with delivering basic services for the people that live there, creating this economic opportunity for First Nations communities that have too often lived in poverty. It is massive, and it is a huge economic impact. It is $2 to $3 billion in estimated equity for First Nations partners on these projects. This is a very exciting day for our province. It is a very good news day for our province. I want to thank everybody who was a part of it. We've got a lot more to do. This is what we talk about when we talk about growing our economy in a way that everybody feels it, that meets our climate goals. We can do it. We're demonstrating that today, and we're going to do a lot more of it. So I very much look forward to your questions, and thank you to everybody who was a part of it.
Reporters on the line, please press star 1 to enter the queue. Please unmute when called on. One question, one follow-up. We'll start here in the room with Richard Zisman, Global News.
Premier, you mentioned phasing out natural gas here in the province in terms of home heating. It's also industrial heating as well. Are we moving too quickly to phase out natural gas and not allowing these other projects to come on board soon enough to produce the demand that we have now? And has there been any reconsideration following the election campaign of looking at any small nuclear options, which I know that you've ruled out in the past?
Yeah, thanks, Richard. I guess this is a good example that elections matter. There were competing proposals that were put forward between the NDP and the Conservatives about where we would go on energy. We put forward a vision, and we've been pushing hard to expand clean energy generation in our province in a way that delivers low rates economic benefits across the province, and ensures that we're creating jobs for everybody. The Conservatives put forward a proposal that they were going to push ahead with small modular nuclear technology, which is not yet in production, which is some of the most expensive power available, and would have had dramatic impact on ratepayers, both from the perspective of the investment in technology, but also the intractable problem of waste disposal. So those were different visions. I think our vision is better. It's better for ratepayers. The technology exists. The proponents are ready to go. The power will be on the grid soon, meaning real electricity that hydro can sell for profit, that can be used for major project proponents that want the electricity, and that's going to protect ratepayers. So for all of those reasons, I think our proposal is better. I'm glad British Columbia sent us in to do this work, and I think we're going to be able to demonstrate over the next 4 years the massive resource that we would be negligent not to take advantage of, because it is cheap, it is ready, and it will ensure prosperity for British Columbians.
Follow up, Richard?
Yeah, the Black Business Association of BC sent out a release today saying that there's a restaurant, Calabash Bistro, on Carroll Street, where the people that work there feel unsafe due to violence, gang activity, and public safety failures, as they describe it. They say there have been threats with firearms and knives directed at staff. Armed individuals had entered the restaurant. Gang violence and drug use remains rampant. What do you say to businesses who continue to plead with your government to do something about ensuring safety for their businesses? And how concerned are you that businesses will no longer be able to operate, especially around the downtown east side, because of these ongoing safety concerns?
Yeah, this is a really serious issue. Safety and community, and it doesn't matter if you're in downtown Vancouver or in the downtown east side, or if you're in downtown Terrace or downtown Victoria. Safety in downtown cores is a key issue for British Columbians. It was a key topic during the debate that took place over the election period, and ensuring that we're moving to address public safety for two groups. One is obviously people who just want to feel safe downtown, business operators and others, and also for people who are very visibly struggling in community with mental health and addiction issues. Ensuring that safety is a key priority for us. Terry Young is here. He's our Minister of State for Community Safety and Integrated Services. Terry's job that I've tasked him with, he's a former senior VPD officer, is to be out in community, meeting with businesses, meeting with local governments, meeting with police and service providers, and ensuring that we're knitting together those services to respond to safety issues in community. Beyond that, we have Dr. Daniel Vigo, who's working with us around people struggling with mental health, addiction, and brain injury. He worked through the interregnum period when we were having the election. His work is getting close to ready to go. In the spring, we're expecting to open additional care supports for people struggling in this way. We're very visible in community as we work across the province to make sure that we're supporting a safe downtown. For the downtown east side specifically, we're working closely with the City of Vancouver, and I'll have more to say about that going forward, but I know the strain that the businesses are under, and I know it's a priority that we protect people down there, that they feel safe, and that's for Calabash, that's for Gourmet Warehouse, that's for London Drugs, that's for everybody who works in the neighborhood.
To the phone line next, Rob Buffum, CTV News.
Oh, hi, thanks for taking my question. My first question is, I'm just hoping to get as much clarity as I can on, today's announcement. What does it mean for rates? Basically, will our electricity bills go up? And I'm also hoping that you could weigh in on, we've heard that there could be as many as 1 million people moving to BC by 2032. This is an 8% increase, but don't we need a lot more?
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Just quickly, the number, as I understand it, in the next 6 years, that electricity demand in British Columbia will be up at least 15%. And so today's call for power is just one of a series of calls for power that's going to be going forward to ensure we're meeting that demand for electricity from businesses and individuals. If we fail to build out this generating capacity, rates would indeed go up, and quite dramatically for British Columbians, because we'd have to purchase electricity on the open market or use more expensive forms of power generation to meet short-term needs at peak times in the year. By doing this work now, by doing an open call, a competitive call for rates. We ensure the most affordable generation possible for British Columbians going forward, using our resources that we have here in the province, creating jobs and economic opportunity here as well. So you're going to see more of this. And what you're going to see is a real emphasis on making sure we're meeting that demand, but also building to anticipated demand from the industrial sector. A lot of the jobs of the future that we see are dependent on huge amounts of electricity. The proposals that are coming forward to us use huge amounts of electricity. We've had proposals well beyond any single customer that BC Hydro has ever seen in its history. And that means for us, the opportunity is there as long as the generation is there, and that's what we're going to do.
We have a follow-up. I've got a question for our colleague on a different topic. This question is, last Thursday, all 50 employees of Small Business BC were told they no longer had a job and were given no severance and didn't even get their final paychecks. What's your reaction to this long-time organization going bankrupt? And why didn't the province bail it out, considering how important small businesses are to our economy?
Thanks, Rob. Obviously, for the employees of Small Business BC, this is a big deal. But for businesses that were dependent on the services that Small Business BC offered, this is significant. So first, our team is working hard to make sure that those subcontractors that were actually delivering services for Small Business BC, that they're like the Export Navigator program, for example, that they're able to continue delivering that program so that businesses are not interrupted by the decision of Small Business BC to enter creditor protection. We were aware that Small Business BC was in financial difficulty, and staff were actually working with Small Business BC to try to address that issue. They decided to enter into creditor protection. And so our priority now is making sure that any taxpayer dollars that were in there are protected, that we're making sure that that money is recovered by the province. And we're going to make sure that they follow and adhere to all obligations that they have as employers so that employees are looked after with the assets that they have. But this is a third-party nonprofit service provider. It is not a government agency. We provide financial support too, but we'll make sure that taxpayer dollars are protected and get answers for those employees as best we're able to.
We'll go next to Alec Lazenby, Vancouver Sun.
Hi, Premier. This question could be either for Premier Eby or Minister Dix. Just wondering, the NDP, previously when you were in opposition, you criticized the BC Liberals' power program as not being needed. BC had a massive surplus of power, and it was a giveaway to power the private sector. Just wondering, how is this program different, especially now that you've got the winners and you know who's spent from the previous program under the BC Liberals?
Thanks, Alec. There are some significant differences from the BC Liberal IPP program. Under that program, the BC Liberal government guaranteed certain hydro rates to projects regardless of the actual cost of production or whatever the market rate was. As a result, it put huge costs on ratepayers. And now in 2024, our call for power, which was a competitive call for power, is delivering rates that in the same dollars are 40% cheaper than they were under the IPP program. Had the government of that day pursued a competitive call for power, they may have seen significantly cheaper rates for ratepayers. Ratepayers may have seen significantly better benefits at a minimum. Instead, a guaranteed rate and lots of political donations. That was the old system. The new system, we got the big money out of politics. We said, come in, bring your best bid, and we're going to competitively select those proposals that deliver the most affordable rates for British Columbians, has resulted in rates that are significantly cheaper, 40% cheaper than the IPP program rates. And so I'm very proud of what has come forward here, especially the piece that delivers those community benefits right across the province to Indigenous partners, to local communities, and what it means for our province going forward economically.
Follow-up, Alec?
Yes, I do. Thank you. My follow-up is for Chris. Just wondering, this is the first call of power. Obviously, there will be multiple ones over the next few years. But I heard you say today that these projects will come online in 2031. Wasn't the original date 2028 to add that capacity to the grid? And also, BC Hydro is historically a net exporter of electricity, but over the previous 2 years, we've seen an increasing amount of our electricity being imported, especially from the U.S., which relies on fossil fuel infrastructure. Just wondering, firstly, on the 2031 date, was that always the plan? And two, when can we expect to see, if we can expect to see, BC become a net exporter of power again?
Okay, Alex, first I'm going to pass to Adrian, and then he'll pass to Chris.
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I mean, BC Hydro has been a net exporter of electricity 8 out of 15 years. It has real benefits, the current system, to us, and the remarkable nature of BC Hydro, the historic investments the British Columbians have made in our Crown Corporation, which I think is something that I know I'm proud of, I know British Columbians are proud of, gives us an advantage in this area. There is significant demand. You've heard me, as Minister of Health, talk about the 11% increase in the number of people on MSP in the last 3 years alone. 3 years, 550,000 more people on MSP, and the demand that places. And then the economic development demands that are significant. With respect to when the power will come online, those numbers, when I first saw this and I became Minister of Energy and Climate Solutions, we were looking at 2028 to 2031 for these projects. The changes that we've made today in the regulatory process will advance that, because we're determined that there is urgency on the economy, urgency on climate change, urgency for action, urgency for Indigenous reconciliation. So you're seeing that reflected in the changes, which are not obviously BC Hydro's changes, but the government's changes, which will affect those dates and bring them forward. And we have a mandate, Minister Davidson, Minister Neal, myself, other members of the cabinet, to ensure that we maintain our environmental standards, but to drive for faster action every day. And that's what I will be doing. So those were the dates that were there before. It will be sooner now. And I will be working, and I know BC Hydro will be working, the proponents will be working every day to see that when you reduce dramatically the regulatory process, which has been in the past longer than the construction process, that you can make real progress and real change. So the 2031 date was the outlier date. Prior to this, we're going to do it sooner.
Oh, absolutely, Minister. And we will be working with the proponents to re-baseline their schedules based on the absence of an EAO process. And they will be very keen to get the projects running as soon as possible. We'll be very keen to integrate those into our system.
Going next to Justine Hunter, Globe and Mail.
Thank you. And if you're still at the mic there, Mr. O'Reilly, maybe I can start with you. Can you give me a sense of what the balance is between supply and demand by 2030 with these projects coming on as you anticipate? What's the gap in terms of what we have and what we need?
I'll leave that technical question over to the minister and to Chris, but Justine, I can tell you that I'm meeting regularly with major investors interested in British Columbia, interested in our clean electricity, interested in the relatively affordable rates, the second lowest in North America. But the demand that they have, the request that they have for the electricity that they need far exceeds what we're able to provide. And so that has been frustrating for me. I think that the more electricity we can generate, the more we're going to see these major industrial customers coming to British Columbia. And these are industrial customers that reflect major employment opportunities. So, for example, we have had major and continue to have major hydrogen fuel proposals for the province. POSCO, a major South Korean steel company, is moving along with their proposal with our province. But we're going to have to meet their need for electricity. And that doesn't include all of the mine proposals we have for the province, that it would significantly benefit their bottom line if they could access electricity instead of using diesel fuel for their mining operations. So there's a massive economic opportunity for us that is almost unlimited. And in terms of the specific projections, though, about the low, medium, and high, maybe I'll turn it over to Chris.
As Premier, our job is to ensure we have enough power to meet the demands of the customer, and we laid out the plans for that in the Integrated Resource Plan, which was accepted this spring with by the BC Utilities Commission, and we're anticipating that with this call, with Site C, with future calls, and our ongoing investments in conservation, that there will be no gap between supply and demand in the province, and that is our obligation to achieve.
Follow-up, Justine?
Yes, thank you. I'm just wondering if that gap includes the critical minerals and AI and things like that. But my question is, to the Premier, is Site C the last of its kind? I'm wondering if our future electrification goals are going to be met through these kinds of calls for power.
Well, Justine, I've been in politics long enough now, never to say never. But I do know that in terms of this call for power, it leverages the benefits that come from having significant hydropower resources in the province. A lot of jurisdictions, when they look at solar, they look at wind, they say, well, that's fine when the sun's shining and the wind's blowing, but what about when it's not? So for us, because we do have the hydroelectric resources, when the sun's not shining and the wind's not blowing, the dams can be operating. But when the wind is blowing in British Columbia, that means we can leave the water behind the dams and have it available on an on-demand basis for us, but also for people who want to buy that electricity from us. That means we can sell that electricity at peak moments in the market and get the most money for it possible for ratepayers. And it means that dispatchable energy provides a level of reliability for our grid and for industry in our province that they can count on the electricity will be there when they need it. It's a massive advantage. And that's why it would be so awful if we miss the opportunity that these kinds of resources present. We've got the strong backbone with the hydroelectric, and the wind capacity that we have in the province is world class. And there is a significant opportunity for us to create that electricity. I think, again, Justine, just in terms of the economic potential that's here for our province, both through direct electricity sales within the province to major industrial customers, as well as export, that just meeting what we expect the baseline demand to be under business as usual projections for the Utilities Commission, I think that would be missing a significant opportunity, that we can attract even more investment, we can attract even more growth and prosperity to the province, the more electricity we produce. And so while British Columbia should be confident that BC Hydro will ensure that they're delivering enough electricity and at rates they can afford going forward, they should also be confident they have a government that's looking for opportunities to grow our economy, to do more than that. And part of that, we believe, is electricity generation, and a huge advantage for us globally right now.
We'll go next to Wolf Deppner, Black Press.
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. Thank you for taking my question. Question regarding the decision not to have environmental assessments on these projects. What's your response to critics who say that the government is preferentially treating clean energy projects over other types of projects? Thank you.
That's not at all the case, Wolf. The commitment that we've made to project proponents in British Columbia is that we're going to do all we can to accelerate the permitting process, to eliminate unnecessary or duplicative steps, to make sure that their projects are able to get shovels in the ground sooner. And that's for everything from major mine projects, which have huge environmental impacts, to very straightforward projects that are a windmill that has a very small podium and has a limited environmental impact. And so making sure that our processes are proportionate to projects, that they are fast, that they are efficient, that they make sense, that they protect our environment, but also protect our prosperity. Those are the goals of our government going forward. You'll see more and more permitting reform going forward, not less. This is the first announcement in a series of how we're going to do that work. And for projects like this, getting them built, getting them up and in the ground will protect our environment. They're Indigenous projects. We're moving past the old model where the only way for nations to participate was through consultation, through an environmental assessment process. Here you see 51% ownership in 8 of the 9 projects, 49% ownership in the 9th. These are Indigenous projects. So putting obligations around environmental assessment processes with nations when they're actually Indigenous projects going forward, it didn't make sense. So that's the work that we're doing. And I look forward to sharing more with you about how we're going to make sure the projects move faster in British Columbia.
Follow-up, Wolf?
Yes, thank you, and please apologize the nasal tone on my end here. A question regarding the larger message, the larger political message that these energy projects are supposed to send. You sort of talked about this a little bit, but can you sort of frame these projects relative to the drill baby drill mentality that might be happening in other parts of North America? Thank you.
Well, you know, I think that when we look at what British Columbia's advantages are, what our edge is in a competitive global economy, one of the obvious opportunities that we have is our clean electricity. The products that we produce here, regardless of what that product is, and that includes fossil fuel products like natural gas. The energy profile of them are the lowest carbon in the world. The aluminum we produce here is the lowest carbon aluminum in the world. And that advantage can be conferred on any product that's produced in this province using our clean electricity. There are many jurisdictions around the world that still care very deeply about climate change. That is a priority for them. There are many businesses and investors around the world that remains a significant priority for them. And knowing, as we do in British Columbia, the impacts of climate change, that issue is not going away, and it will continue to be a global discussion. We are moving to a low-carbon future. There's just no debate about it. And so if that's where we're going, to use our advantage of clean electricity, that's what we're going to do. The political message is the message to all British Columbians that our government will not let us get left behind in a low-carbon future. We're going to take all of the steps we can to secure that advantage, including using our clean electricity to ensure we're a world leader in the inevitable zero-carbon future we're moving towards.
We'll go next to Dirk Meisner, Canadian Press.
Hi, Premier. Today's announcement about economic generation. I'm just wondering also today the BC Business Council has come out with a report saying concerned that the province's economy has plateaued. I'm just wondering what how you would react to them saying we need to do more for private investment.
Well, I couldn't think of a better timing for an announcement like today's of $5 to $6 billion of private sector clean energy investment in British Columbia than on a day when the BC Business Council is reminding us to be focused on investment in the province. That's exactly what we're doing. Today's announcement is about delivering, making sure that these projects get shovels in the ground, that they get generating, they get creating prosperity. And to that end, we are completely aligned in terms of how to move forward in this province. You'll see our government focused on shortening permit times, getting more projects across the line faster, and growing this province's economy. An economy that led Canada last year among all provinces for GDP growth, and an economy that I acknowledge has been badly hurt by the decisions of the central bank in Ottawa to raise interest rates. That hurts British Columbians more than it hurts other people in other provinces. And despite that, we still grew the fastest in Canada. And I'm going to push hard to make sure we've got a federal partner that recognizes as British Columbia taxpayers pay out dollars to support people across Canada through equalization payments, $13 billion for Quebec, billions for Atlantic Canada, $5 billion for Manitoba. As we contribute that money to support other regions in Canada because of our economic success, we need them to support us in kind. And so we'll continue to push the federal government to make sure they're supporting British Columbia in our success. And I hope the BC Business Council pushes as well, because as one of the 3 provinces in Canada that's supporting many people in the rest of the country, we need a federal government that's going to support us as well. Follow-up,
Dirk?
Sure. Site C coming online. Are we going to have to get used to calling it Site C, or is there going to be a new name for the dam?
That's a good question, Dirk. I hadn't turned my mind to it all. I don't know if Chris has any thoughts, or Adrian. Yeah, well, Adrian has a thought about this. I'm very intrigued.
Well, I think that Site C scans very well, but those are issues that we're looking at. But right now, I think it's been known as Site C since, about 1978. So I think that's okay, but there are other considerations always that we're looking at and reviewing. And so if we have something to announce on that, we'll let you know. But Site C for the moment sounds pretty good.
We'll go next to Thomas Seal, Bloomberg News, and that's our final question today.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my question. I was intrigued, Premier, by the remark about more permitting reform. Just wondering, is that just about power infrastructure? Is that across other things? What are you looking at?
Thanks. We have our review of the Environmental Assessment Act coming up, the 5-year review. So we'll be doing that work around making sure the Environmental Assessment Act meets everyone's expectations of protecting our precious environment while ensuring that meritorious projects come through or issues with the projects are addressed before they're built. We're working closely within government with the mining sector, for example, to expedite approvals for new mines without compromising environmental protections that British Columbians expect. We've done significant work around permitting reform related to housing, which has brought down permitting times by 40%. And we rolled that out to the mining sector. You'll see more of that for major projects in the province. So there are a number of different avenues of work that are taking place, the goal of which is to preserve the intent of these regulatory processes, protecting the environment, protecting people, protecting communities, while minimizing the red tape, duplication, and the length of time that it takes to get these projects approved. Something that has been noted for us by many observers is a national issue, and certainly an issue in British Columbia, and where I believe we can do significantly better.
Follow-up, Thomas?
Yes, please. For Mr. O'Reilly, just on the tempo of next call for powers, are they going to be at a similar scale, sort of 8% or thereabouts of the grid? And is it all going to be wind, or could it be in different types of power?
Okay, I'll just go quickly, Chris, and I'll pass to you. One of the things that was important for us in this call for power was that government didn't decide in advance or direct BC Hydro which clean energy source they should be choosing. The direction was simply that it should be clean energy for British Columbia, and that the proposals that come forward should be judged on their merits, particularly around affordability for ratepayers and the ability to get the projects up and delivering power. And so that being agnostic about the source of clean energy enabled many different proposals to come forward, but it was the wind proposals that had the lowest cost profile, protected ratepayers the most. So that resulted in the approved projects being entirely wind projects. With that, I'll turn it over to Chris on the technical aspects.
Yes, so going forward, we will be engaging with industry and First Nations around the product needs, and I would expect there to be a continued need for renewable energy sources. And as the Premier says, we're agnostic about the particular source of that, just that it meets the renewable and clean requirements. At some point, we will need more capacity or firm resources, and we will include those kind of features in our competitive call. But there will be lots of engagement with the Utility Commission and the industry in advance of that.
And that's all the time we have today. Thanks, everyone.